Hey Grace Church, my name is Jesse. Welcome to the weekly for the week of August 21st. Today we're looking at Jesus healing the blind man. Today in our passage, we see that Jesus heals a blind man, and from the surface of the story, it seems like a very simple story, but there's actually a lot going on here. We're going to look at this healing of the blind man from two different angles. The first one is the moment of the interaction between the blind man and Jesus. And so first, notice Jesus. How does he treat the blind man? He takes him by the hand, leads him to a private place, and has this healing moment with him where he's blind, and then there's a partial healing, and then he gets full clarity. Also notice the blind man has these friends who bring the blind man to Jesus. I just love these details in the story and the interaction. How can Jesus change the way that we as Christians view people with disabilities? This is a blind man, clearly a person with disabilities. How can the church better serve people and empower people and advocate for people with disabilities, just as Jesus is doing with this blind man and does over and over and over again throughout the gospel stories? There's a pastor named Lamar Hardwick. He wrote a book called Disability in the Church. He's a man with autism. He calls himself the autism pastor, and he teaches and trains the church in how to engage people with disability and to empower them. And so I encourage you, go to autismpastor.com and just learn about how the church can have greater understanding, awareness, and empowerment for people with disabilities, just like Jesus had. So that's the first way to look at this moment, is the interaction Jesus has with this blind man. But the second way to understand it is the larger meaning of this moment. This place that they land is called Bethsaida. It's an important and special place for the life of the disciples. To understand why, we have to go back a couple chapters into Mark chapter 6, where Jesus says, get into a boat and go across the lake to Bethsaida. Now a storm comes and Jesus is walking on the water, and Jesus meant to pass them by. He wants to show the disciples his glory, but instead of seeing his glory, they see a ghost, and they're terrified and they freak out. And so they actually do not end up at Bethsaida. The storm blows them back to Gennesaret. They are not ready to get to Bethsaida. And so for the next two chapters, we see Jesus bring the disciples on this long journey of doing things over again. There's a second feeding of the 4,000 when there was one just a couple chapters earlier in feeding of the 5,000. We see they go back to the Decapolis and do that all over again. We see a healing of a blind man and a healing of a deaf man. And then they finally get back to Bethsaida, and then this blind man has a partial healing and then a full healing. He fully is able to see. This man is a parable, an illustration of what's happening inside of the hearts of the disciples. You see, they are not ready for Bethsaida. They do not see Jesus clearly, and Jesus will take them all the way back around and do all of these things over and over again until they finally understand who Jesus is. So they no longer see a ghost, but they see him as Lord and Savior, which happens. And so Jesus gives them this second chance. They have a second chance to see Jesus clearly. And that is just so powerful for who God is in our own lives. They were not ready to move forward until they were able to see Jesus clearly and let him lead them forward. And so Jesus has been with you on your journey, this whole journey of your life, whether you realize it or not. Jesus has never left you. He's never forsaken you. But are you ready to move forward? Have you arrived to the Bethsaida of your life, where you see Jesus clearly and allow him to lead you forward? Because there's a big difference in if you're going to lead your life, if you're going to be the leader of your life, and where you're going to end up in the destination, or if you let Jesus be your Lord and leader of your life and move you beyond Bethsaida to the future. There's going to be some discussion questions for you to dive in and to dig deeper into what the journey has looked like in your life and what the future of your life will look like moving forward with Jesus as the leader of your life.